get started. I'm not going to do any type of introduction because we got a lot of stuff we need to cover within a short period of time. First of all, on behalf of Sheriff Block, thank you for inviting me. What we're going to talk about today is street gangs, okay? We're not talking about, we were talking about all the gangs in the state of South Carolina. We'll be here all day. All right, so we're going to focus on the street gangs, the Crips, your Bloods, the ones that you're starting to hear more and more about, okay? Kind of like to show this video before I get started in my actual presentation. This is, I don't know if has anyone seen this video before?
Yes, sir.
We actually had this young man walking around this school for about an hour and a half before we actually did this reenactment for us. This is what prompted a lot of school tuck-in dress codes within some of our districts within the area. An hour and a half undetected. Okay?
And he walked around?
And he walked around the school. Okay? I know we got educators in here today, so this is a great tool to use if you're trying to get something implemented in your school as far as tucking in that dress.
Tell me this where this was again. You know, I'm dealing with school, but this is South Carolina
Yes, ma'am.
child, and he got this from his buddies.
It was a reenactment. We put the reenactment on just to...
He just walked around school for an hour and a half.
And no one noticed he had those sleeves on,
Right.
on his
No one
person.
noticed.
Okay.
No one noticed. So
Okay.
this actually prompted this. You know, sometimes, especially with a lot of our gang members, they like to wear the T-shirts that almost look like dresses. And the statistics show that majority of all weapons found in schools were found in the waistband if they're bringing a weapon on campus. Okay? So that's a very valuable tool to use if you're trying to get that implemented in your school. All right, not going to spend a lot of time on this. This law is actually not working for us right now. It is, but we do have a law in the books as far as the state of South Carolina, which defines what a criminal gang member means. And it actually is a sentencing phase that's supposed to enhance the penalty if you're found to be involved in a gang and participating in some criminal activity. But the reason I say that it's really not working for us is because of that one thing that consists of 5 or more persons. A lot of our gangs are 5 or more people involved, but when they go out to commit criminal acts, it's only 2 or 3 people. And 99% of your states have the law written 2 or more people or 3 or more people. For some reason, our legislators came with this magic number 5. So we're actually in the process of getting that revamped so we can actually use that law to our advantage. We're going to talk about 2 different types of gangs. I know I'm moving fast, but I didn't realize we're going to have such a short period of time to cover this. It's a lot of material. So if you need to stop me, if I need to go back, don't hesitate to throw something in and get my attention some type of way, okay? We got the gangs we deal with mostly here are, that we like to say is the non-traditional gangs, or your hybrid style gangs. Those are your neighborhood cliques. Traditional gangs are going to be the ones that has a history, the ones that come from California, the ones that come from Chicago, okay? What we have here is basically some of those national gangs came in, infiltrated our guys, basically showed them how to make some money, either through weapon trafficking, narcotics trafficking, something of that nature that's normally the money makers for the gang, and basically turned our neighborhood groups or cliques over to national or traditional gangs. For example, we had a group that called themselves the Riverside Bloods, so Riverside Boys at one point. Almost overnight, they went from Riverside Boys to the Riverside Bloods. We had a group of Bloods that came from New York. These guys are well connected and actually taught these guys the ways of the Bloods and inducted them into that organization. All right, the People Nation. We're going to talk about a few groups today. We're going to talk about 2 nations. It's the People Nation and the Folk Nation. And both of these groups were actually started in the Chicago penal system. And you hear a lot about folk, right? Everybody's heard of folk before? We know that that's not a gang, correct? Folk Nation, that's a nation. It's like the People Nation. You have 2 different nations in Chicago, and this is the history. I'm going to kind of keep this very brief, but in Chicago, it was actually against prison rules to say that I'm a part of a gang. If you were to say that, say a fight happened and it was perceived to be gang-related, the officer's question whether or not it was gang-related and what gang you're involved in. If you were to admit to being in a gang, that would actually enhance your prison sentence by being in a gang inside a prison. So when the officer asks you who you represent, the inmates will simply say, I represent the people, or represents the folk. During intake process, if the officer asks the prison, are you in a gang? That's what they would simply say, I represent the people, I represent the folk. That way, the officer knew where to place this inmate in the prison if he didn't want to find him dead the next morning. But at the same time, he's not admitting to being in a gang. And what you ended up with is you might have 15 gangs that get along that represent under the people nation, and you got 15 that get along that represent under the folk nation. Okay? So it's two separate groups, and you can see the history right here. These are the gangs that actually align with the people nation. Okay? And this was in the Chicago penal system. This is basically, you hear a lot about the vice lords. The ones that we have highlighted in red are the ones that we deal with in the state of South Carolina. Okay? Now the Black Kings, you can pretty much scratch that from the list. But we're not seeing any more signs of Black Kings. About 10 years ago, we did have some Black Kings in the Columbia area. The East Coast Bloods, that's of course, the ones that you hear about all the time. And if it were not for the East Coast Bloods, we wouldn't be dealing with the people nation. Okay? And the reason we put East Coast Bloods is because in California, there's no such thing as being a blood gang member and representing under the people nation. Okay? In California, you have Crips and Bloods. So over here, you have the people nation and the folk nation. And you have the gangs that are aligned with those particular groups. Okay? So the East Coast Bloods are the ones that we deal with here on the East Coast. All right, this guy, David Barksdale, Larry Hoover, they are the ones that were actually the leaders in the Chicago penal system as far as the folk nation. This is a group that you hear about a lot, but you hear the term folk gang. The same deal with the people nation. You might have 15 gangs that actually align with the folk nation. This is an example of some that we actually deal with here in the South Carolina area. Black Gangster Disciples, East Coast Crips, and Insane Gangster Disciples. Okay? Those are the groups that we deal with mostly here within the Columbia or South Carolina area. Probably one of the more violent groups in the state. Okay? All right. These are the guys you hear about all the time, the Crips and the Bloods. And I'm going to kind of sum up the history on both of these groups because it was the same history. These guys were a group of kids. You can see does anybody recognize that guy top left-hand corner?
I've seen him on TV before.
Seen him on TV before. That's Tukey Williams. He was actually executed back in 2005. He almost got up on that spot. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm not going to do any type of introduction because we got a lot of stuff we need to cover within a short period of time. First of all, on behalf of Sheriff Block, thank you for inviting me. What we're going to talk about today is street gangs. Okay? We're not talking about, there's several, if we were talking about all the gangs in the state of South Carolina, we'll be here all day. All right, so we're going to focus on street gangs, your Crips, your Bloods, the ones that you're starting to hear more and more about. Okay? Kind of like to show this video before I get started in my actual presentation. This is, I don't know if has anyone seen this video before?
No, sir.
We actually had this young man walking around this school for about an hour and a half before he actually did this reenactment for us. This is what prompted a lot of school tuck-in dress codes within some of our districts within the area. An hour and a half under the detective. Okay?
And he walked around?
And he walked around the school. Okay? I know we got educators in here today, so this is a great tool to use if you're trying to get something implemented in your school as far as tucking in that dress.
Tell me this where this was again. I'm dealing with school, but this is South Carolina child, and he got these from his buddies.
No, it was a reenactment. We put the reenactment on
He just walked around school for an hour and a half.
And no one noticed he had those things on his person. Okay.
No one noticed. So this actually prompted this. Sometimes, especially with a lot of our gang members, they like to wear the T-shirts that almost look like dresses. And the statistics show that majority of all weapons found in schools were found in the waistband if they bring the weapon on campus. Okay? So that's a very valuable tool to use if you're trying to get that implemented in your school. All right. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. This law is actually not working for us right now. It is, but we do have a law in the books as far as the state of South Carolina, which defines what a criminal gang member means. And it actually is a sentencing phase that's supposed to enhance the penalty if you're found to be involved in a gang and participating in some criminal activity. But the reason I say that it's really not working for us because of that. one thing that consists of 5 or more persons. A lot of our gangs are 5 or more people involved, but when they go out to commit criminal acts, it's only 2 or 3 people. And 99% of your states have the law written 2 or more people or 3 or more people. For some reason, our legislators came with this magic number 5. So we're actually in the process of getting that revamped so we can actually use that law to our advantage. We're going to talk about 2 different types of games. I know I'm moving fast, but I didn't realize we're going to have such a short period of time to cover this. It's a lot of material. So if you need to stop me, if I need to go back, don't hesitate to throw something in and get my attention some type of way. Okay? We got the games we deal with mostly here are, that we like to say, is the non-traditional games, or your hybrid style games. Those are your neighborhood cliques. Traditional games are going to be the ones that has a history, the ones that come from California, the ones that come from Chicago. Okay. What we have here is basically some of those national games came in, infiltrated our guys, basically showed them how to make some money, either through weapon trafficking, narcotics trafficking, something of that nature. That's normally the money makers for the game, and basically turned our neighborhood groups or cliques over to national or traditional games. For example, we had a group that called themselves the Riverside Blood. So Riverside Boys at one point, where you see them on TV. Yeah. But this guy was one of the leaders of the Crips that executed 4 people, put them on the knees, shot them in the back of the head, killed them 4 times, 4 people. But in his prison system, he started doing cartoon books, different things to keep kids out of the game. He was actually up for the Nobel Peace Prize at one point. But he actually tried to get off, but it didn't work for him. 2005, he was executed. But you see the age of these guys. These guys were 15, 16, 14 years old. That this group was actually initially called the Compton Pyrus. Okay? It was the Crips and the Bloods together. And basically what you had was a bunch of inner city youth that looked up to the Black Panther Party. They wanted to be like these guys for whatever reason. It was a lot of racial things going on in those days. There was a lot of mistrust of the police. So these guys were to ask if we had a group called the Spook Hunters that would come to the black community to assault blacks for whatever reason. This is a group they were called. Okay, the Compton Pyrus. If a husband is beating the wife, instead of calling the police because they didn't trust the police, they would call the Compton Pyrus. Okay, so that was the purpose of this group initially. What happened, you had a lot of jobs to move out into the suburbs of California. People started to move out in the area. You had a group of a bunch of inner city youth left with nothing to do. That's when the narcotics started coming to the area. That's when the split happened between the Crips and the Blood. One of the bloodiest wars in California when the Crips and the Blood split. And basically it became territorial. And that's what we're dealing with today. Basically the Crips, you stay on your side, the Bloods, you stay on your side, you cross the line, you got a problem, okay? And it was all about selling drugs, making money that way, all right? So that's where the history behind the 2 groups in a nutshell. The Crips refer to at the bottom, you see the Crips refer to each other quite often as cuz. You hear that conversation often. Now, everything you see in this presentation, if you just hear someone say, "What's up, cuz?" I'm automatically assuming they're a Crip. And it's we have to say that because we've done presentations and the next day, someone wearing blue, they're a Crip. Okay, if someone wearing red, they're a Crip. You got to put the whole puzzle together before you start labeling people, okay? But you would hear that term in that conversation often, very often. They would greet each other. "What's up, cuz? How's the day, cuz?" It would be continuous in that particular conversation. Okay? These are some of the other main identifiers for Crip. The main thing is the color is blue. Now, law enforcement really don't look at colors anymore because these guys know that we're monitoring them. They know we got these elaborate databases that we're keeping their information in. So they kind of ventured off from wearing just one particular color. Okay? But still, the main national color is blue. They identify with the number 6. We'll talk more about that here shortly. The dress emphasis is going to be on the right-hand side. That simply means that the bill of the hat may be turned slightly to the right. The right pants leg may be pulled up slightly. The belt buckle may be turned slightly. Something on that right-hand side is going to identify them as a Crip or a Folk Nation gang member. Okay? You may not recognize it, but other gang members will. All right? This is their hand sign, the C. All right? This is something that's the basic hand sign. See, we'll talk more about that Star of David here shortly as well. Same group, same history. The only thing you need to really know about this is that Vincent Noah and Sylvester Scott was a split half between the two. When it became territorial, those are the two guys that actually took control of the Bloods. Down at the bottom, the Bloods refer to each other quite often as dog. Okay? They use the term dog to refer to each other, just like the Crips use the term what? Cuz. Okay? These are some of the main identifiers for the Bloods. The color is red, still red, but they use all types of colors. We've seen green. They say it's for the marijuana that they smoking, for the money that they make. Okay? Blood, brown, they use the color for, they say that brown is the color that blood, when blood dries. Okay? So they're using brown as well, but they're using several different colors, so we really don't look at colors anymore. They identify with the number 5. The Folk Nation Crips identify with the number 6. The Bloods People Nation identify with the number 5. Very important to remember. Dress emphasis is going to be on your left-hand side. Just the opposite of the Crips or the Folk. This is going to be their hand sign, the B. Alright? That's the basic hand sign for the Bloods. These are the new guys that we're seeing on the block. And these guys are actually increasing in numbers around the state of South Carolina and the East Coast. Okay? These are the guys that we hear about all the time. Anybody ever heard of Sereno's 13 before? Sereno's? Alright. MS 13. Okay. This is the same, pretty much the same group. Basically, the Hispanic gangs, they have their alliances as well. What they call themselves, the Norteños and the Sureños. The Norteños are the Northern California Alliance. The Sureños is the Southern California Alliance of Hispanic gangs. They basically align all the gangs together in Southern California, Northern California for number purposes, okay, and for trafficking and weapons. These guys are very, very violent. These guys are guerrilla warfare trained. A lot of people think that they started over here they started in El Salvador and came over here to the United States, but actually it's just the opposite. They started in California. We kicked them out. They ended up back in El Salvador in the middle of a civil war. They got trained, guerrilla warfare trained. They came back in higher numbers. We've been dealing with that problem ever since. But Sereno's 13, the MS 13, any gang, Hispanic gang you see with number 13 behind it, what they're saying is they're paying their respect to the Mexican mafia because they're saying they have some type of ties with the Mexican mafia. Okay? Contract murder, extortion, all of the organized crime type things. These guys are involved in very violent. The machete is the weapon of choice for these guys. Number 13M, okay? That's their respect to the Mexican mafia. 13 letter of the alphabet is going to be your M, okay? So whenever you see a Hispanic gang or any type of gang with 13, then what you're probably looking at is some Sereno's type of affiliate or alliance with the gang. They really don't have a national color, but they are often seen with the color blue. MS-13, same family, same gang, pretty much. You can see for yourself actually what it means. It's basically soldiers on guard. Okay? And Salvadorian immigrants. The enemies that we have of these guys in the state of South Carolina will be your 18th Street gang. Okay? Now, the Norteños, we're not seeing any signs of those guys here, but the 18th Street gang, we are. This was a political Hispanic gang when it first initiated. You'll see these guys normally represent with the 666 and their tattoos. You will see that either in the web of their hand, you've seen it at the bottom of their lip. They tattooed on the inside of their lip over their eyelashes. Somewhere on their body they're going to have 666, and they represent the 18th Street gang, and that's their hand sign. I can never do that, but that's the hand sign is actually making the 18. Okay, the MS-13 hand sign or the Sereno's is going to be your devil horns. Okay, that's the sign that they use for representation. All right, some of the things that we use to identify gang members, especially on the streets, because of course they're not going to admit to law enforcement they're gang members. All right, but most kids have what? What do most kids? They have cell phones, right? Those cell phones have what on them? Pictures, right? All right, it never fails. Whenever we got with a gang member, of course, we already seen the signs and know they're a gang member. We ask them, of course, they're going to say no. Ask them, do they have a cell phone? They say yes. Might as well take a look. As soon as we open that cell phone, that picture on the front It's either going to be them throwing up a gang sign or their friends throwing up a gang sign. It has never failed. This is almost 100% now. Or if it's not on the front of the cell phone, the graphics, you scroll down to their pictures and you'll be able to see something in there that's going to relate them to a particular game. Okay? These are the pictures that were taken out of South Carolina. MySpace, YouTube. Everybody familiar with those sites, right? MySpace, one of the biggest donors of games in the internet world. If you ask me, we've contacted MySpace and other agencies have as well. And the reason I say this, first of all, because if anybody's familiar with MySpace, you have to build your page. You have to build your own web page. With the gang members, and you have to do your pictures and whatever else with the graphics. The only thing they have to do, over here to your left-hand side, as you see, what I have posted is just two graphics that MySpace already have made up for gang members. Okay, they have hundreds of these where gang members, if they're in a gang, all they have to do is save and then paste on their MySpace account. They don't have to come up with their own graphics because MySpace already have it laid out for them. They have hundreds of pages for these guys. Okay, so they save, paste on their page, and build their page that way. All right, MySpace always also took it to another level where the kids are able to privatize their account, which means you as a parent, if you wanted to look and see what's going on with your MySpace, your kid's MySpace page, you would have to know a password to get behind it. Okay? So, this is something that MySpace is doing to, kind of condone the game world. Anything you want to know about games, you go into MySpace. But what they don't realize is that law enforcement have MySpace pages as well. And that's where we get a lot of our intel from, the intelligence, through MySpace and different internet sites. What you have to do if it's password protected is you have to be invited as a friend, okay? So once they invite you as their friend on MySpace, you can get behind their password and see what's going on that page. And we've solved a lot of crimes that way, okay? Because these guys, they love to brag. Everything they do, they take video of or they take pictures of now. And they put them on MySpace a lot of times. YouTube, same deal. All right, more MySpace pics. This is actually a local restaurant. Anybody can look at that and tell me which restaurant that might be?
KFC.
Actually, local Chick-fil-A. Okay. This young man was actually employed by Chick-fil-A. Decided after closing hours one day to pull his gun out and start flashing around. Okay, he was actually a gangster disciple member. We were able to articulate to the judge that was indeed a real weapon. Got a search warrant, found that weapon under his mattress, 2 other weapons outside of his home. Okay, and what we found is that the gang members are placing house weapons. Say for instance, they don't bring them into the school. They will place a house weapon somewhere outside of the school, whether it's in a flower basket or behind a tree or under a rock, something of that nature. It's a house weapon that all the gang members within its set would know about, and if something were to occur in that particular school, the gang members would know where to go to get this particular weapon. Okay, so that's what they're doing. They're not bringing the weapons inside the school, but that's what they're doing on the outside of the schools. Okay. Show you a quick video, and I hope the audio is okay of event that happened here. We'll talk about that in a second.
Like most American cities, Columbia, South Carolina has its share of problems, but nothing prepared Sheriff Leon Lott for what his department discovered last August. Four Marines who proudly snapped pictures were recruiting local kids, some as young as 13, into the Crips street gang. Their leader, this man, was a Lance Corporal.
We had a rough problem with our local kids and what they do, but they had to Marines, someone who's trained to come up here and recruit them. They want to give them the training. The benefits of training they got in the military, and that scares me to death because everybody tells us that we're in real with these gangs.
It's a concern also raised by the FBI. In a recent report, the agency warned military training could ultimately result in more sophisticated and deadly gangs, as well as deadly assaults on law enforcement officers. CBS News has learned that military police have briefed local authorities in major life skills. They insist the threat is low.
We're not seeing this in this particular time. We're just not.
This is a theory, as far as you can tell.
That's a theory.
But there was an incident in which a disturbed Marine used his training to kill 2 policemen. In January 2005, the Marine, who police say was associated with the Norteño street gang, shot to death 2 policemen outside a convenience store in California.
It was an ambush. An ambush.
Surveillance video shows him using a technique Marines call cutting the pie. Instead of cowering, he boldly attacks.
The house will be in a run.
Congress is considering legislation that would prohibit service members from associating with street gangs. But there are also calls to raise enlistment standards, which have slipped to such an extent that 1 in 10 new Army recruits has a criminal record.
We were able in the 80s and into the 90s to say, you have to be special to serve your country. We're not going to just allow anybody because this is very difficult work. But
All right, for time purposes, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Anybody remember that incident that happened here in Richland County?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, you heard the colonel saying that they're not seeing signs of that in the military. Well, to be honest with you, one of the biggest problems that we've in our ex-military is the blackout in the military. But one of the things we're doing right now is training drill sergeants in Fort Jackson because they've seen such an increase in gang activity on Fort Jackson, an increase of soldiers involved in gangs on base, that they feel like they need to do something as far as keeping them out, okay, or identifying them before they actually get into the military. We've trained all the commanders, the generals on down in the state of South Carolina as far as the signs to look for with gangs in the military. Over in Iraq, actually they have a lawsuit in the military right now because Sergeant First Class, when he served in Iraq, he came back stationed in Germany, decided he wanted to be a part of the Gangster Disciples. He was brought in by a process they call beat-in or beat-down, and I'm going to show you an example of that here shortly. He died. He suffered internal bleeding and he died, okay? And it had already been an ongoing investigation where people were saying that the military were not doing anything about the gang problems that they were having. So that's the reason for the lawsuit, okay? And that's an ongoing investigation right now as far as that. But this guy, he was 25 years old over in Iraq. As soon as he got back, he decided he wanted to be a part of this group. So that lets you know what was going on over in Iraq. Influenced this 25-year-old man, staff sergeant in the military, that decided he wanted to be a gang member once he got back into the States. Okay? Another thing they're dealing with is gang graffiti on tanks in Iraq. That's one of the biggest problems they're dealing with over there. Gang graffiti on our tanks in Iraq. All right? But this particular group here we had a group of Crips, middle school and high school age, that decided they wanted to make sure that that Crip gang was fall under the lines of a national Crip gang. These guys have what's called a book of knowledge, or a gang Bible, or you may refer to it as a policy and procedure manual for a job. That's pretty much what it is. Basically, what it is the outline of their do's and don'ts in the gang. Okay, how to be a gang member. All right. These guys wanted to make sure that they were following the national rules of Crips. So by the internet, they made contact with a group of Crips from California, said, hey, basically we want to make sure our chapter of Crips here is legitimate. Those guys wrote back and said, hey, we can't get that, but we know some people that can. So they made contact via the internet with these guys in Beaufort, the Marines in Beaufort, and told them, hey, we need you to go down to South Carolina and basically train these guys on how to be Crips, okay? So that's what they did. They got in their vehicles, came down, and they started having meetings here in South Carolina, Columbia, teaching these guys not only the ways of the Crips, but also the training they were learning in the military, okay? So luckily we had a parent that saw a group of guys coming into an abandoned building with a lot of blue and white on. She gave us a call. We were able to get there, actually make some arrests. Weapons and narcotics were found as well, and we were able to obtain these pictures off of MySpace, okay? So this is what we're dealing with. Now think about when all of these troops come from Iraq, come back over to the States. These guys still have their allegiance to their gangs, okay? So they're going to be, and they're trained in urban warfare. Some similar to the MS-13 when they came back, okay? These guys are really holding their allegiance to a particular gang, very strong. This is a private example right here. I talked with all of the college universities are not getting on board with this gang problem, okay? And it's a shame that we still got some schools that you know, still have the blinders on. And I appreciate y'all being here today because there's a lot of schools in the state that don't think they have any gang issues. The latest SLED statistics show that every school in the state of South Carolina has some type of gang influence, some type of gang involvement with them, to include private schools, okay? Prime example right here is this guy. Anybody familiar with this young man?
Yeah.
That's Paul Pierce, okay? And you remember the signs that I threw up, what signs he throwing up? B, which is for Bloods, right? Now, if anybody watched the NBA, how many people saw him throw this up? I saw him throw it up several times, or flashing. That's what they call it when they throwing up that sign there. It's flashing. And the NBA finally caught up with him. They charged him $10,000, which is a drop in the bucket for Paul Pierce for throwing up gang signs. Of course, he denied it. Paul Pierce said that stood for him, blood, sweat, and tears. That's why he was throwing it up. And now when I talked with the Ducks and I asked them how many people saw him throwing it up, nobody saw it. But when I talked to a group of kids and I asked them, everybody saw it. Okay? So our kids that want to be NBA stars or professional athletes, and they see this guy who is the MVP national championship throwing up blood every time you make a good play, guess what? They want to be like this guy. All right? So this is what our kids are seeing on TV. All right? Now, did a little bit of research because, of course, he denied it. Paul Pierce comes from Compton, one of the most violent blood territory there is in California. Okay? So he knows what it means to throw this sign up and what can happen if he's basically not really claiming that. Okay? A couple years back, Paul Pierce was left for dead in a nightclub, stabbed several times. Has gang relationship written all over it, but the investigation did conclude to be gang related, but you know, it did conclude to not be gang related. But all the signs show that there was something dealing with the gang. Never found a suspect involved with it. Okay, he was at a club they called the Buzz Club, big B in the front. Okay, all of those. Yeah, those are the red flags that I'm talking about putting together. You just can't go just about one thing, but once you do your research and you look into some things, you'll find out this guy, he knows exactly what he's doing, okay? And he was fired for a reason, for throwing that particular sign up. All right, these are some of the disrespect terms that you would hear. These terms have actually caused fights in schools, okay? Teacher didn't understand what's going on because she, you know, probably wasn't educated. He wasn't educated on gangs. One word was said and a fight happened. For blood, slob. You hear that term? That's disrespecting the blood. That's another gang member disrespecting the blood gang member. Crabs for Crips. My police friends like the next one, donuts. Okay? That is actually disrespectful to the folks. The reason, or the folk nation, the reason for that is because their founding member, one of the founding members actually shot and killed in front of a donut shop. A lot of schools have actually taken out the fundraiser for donuts. You remember the donut sales that we used to have in the schools and whatnot? Because it's caused so many problems in the school. And to me, you know, that's kind of saying that the gang members won. But donuts, that's disrespectful to folks. Band-Aid or safety pin on clothing. Anybody ever saw that before? Band-Aid on clothing, safety pin, anything of that nature. Start taking a closer look. Believe me, you'll start seeing it. Basically, what they're saying is, say for instance, little Johnny's coming to school wearing all red. The administration started questioning, you know, you involved in the game, what's going on, why you wearing all red? Parents questioning. The next day, little Johnny might come to school with all blue or black or something of that nature on it. But what he's going to do, he's going to place a Band-Aid or safety pin on their clothing, basically letting everybody know that, hey, for whatever reason I'm wearing these colors today, this is not who I represent.